Hear them sweet tunes? hmm That is some good stuff. And we are going to dive into some Go Baby Go. Hello, everyone. This is W, aka William. Welcome to another event, High Arts on the Edge. Today, we have a very special guest that has gone through an amazing journey of music and mental health, and that will be our focus for today. Moon Cowboy, also known as Ricardo Fiel,
Yeah.
will be sharing with us his brand new EP, the details, along with a very special shirt that he's wearing. We didn't know this was going to happen. In addition to some albums that he loves and has inspired him along the way. So sit back, enjoy the conversation. We are very honored to have Ricardo here. And I will say this Go Baby Go EP that we are going to take a listen to, and he will go into further detail. Um, it is a wonderful amalgamation of dream pop, shoegaze, and it just kind of like it embodies the spirit of his work that really comes forth through the music. So excited to hear this with you all. Ricardo, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, sir. Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Of course. Now, I want to ask you this question before we kind of dive into the EP. Where are you tuning in from?
So I'm tuning in from near Lisbon in Portugal. At this very precise moment, I have to be in the car because my place is like three small kids and it's just a complete mess. And I was planning to go on a small cafe nearby, which is usually super quiet, and there's like a group activity, something. So it's a new experience, doing one of this from the car.
So I believe the car is a great place to actually decompress, recharge, refuel. It's a place where I have found some sanctuary and comfort.
Mm.
Does that work for you too?
All the time.
Yeah.
And I love just driving with music and just drive somewhere. Yeah, it can do wonders. Just be 1 hour or something.
I'm very fortunate that my car still has a CD player that functions, and I love using my CDs. Do you have a CD player in there, or do you do strictly digital?
This one is strictly digital,
Okay.
unfortunately, because I have tons of CDs at home,
I
and
bet you
there's
do.
there's some magic to putting the CD playing in the car, and then you cannot
Yeah.
change it. Right, so it's really cool.
Well, happy Friday to you. Today is March 31st. I can't believe we're here almost to April. You know, it's been a year and a half, I think, the last time we spoke. And what have you been
Yeah,
up to in that time?
yeah. So the new rec, actually, this one was supposed to be out like 6 months after the first one. Most of the songs were written, not recorded, but written by there, by then. Then a ton of stuff happened. We had a new baby, so the third one we moved place. Then there was a lot of challenges at work and with the mental health thing, and I just said it's not the time. So initially, I was super stressed, like I gotta get this thing recorded, and it's three songs. I mean, how hard can it be, right? But then I just said it's not the time, and
Yeah.
I'll wait. That's fine. I'll know when the time comes. So for the past 6 months, maybe a bit more, I finished this one. I have like 8 or 9 songs almost ready. So I've been recording a lot. Um, and in the meantime, mental health is something I've struggled with recently, and at work. So full disclaimer: I work for Microsoft in Portugal. I found someone who went public with mental health issues, and then I joined a small peer group that we created to support each other. And then we discovered that a lot of people, not just inside the company, but actually friends, family, uh, you know, are suffering from some form of mental health. So that's the main topic that's driving me now. How can we help people at least take a first step?
I'm looking forward to exploring those details with you after we do the EP. Listen, go, baby, go. Um, so before we actually start, how long for these three tracks did it take you from start to finish to put together?
So if we ignore the initial like demos when I released the other EP, these ones were recorded from scratch. The three of them. I just threw away the demos. They were sounding horrible. Um, it started around November, so I had the tracks ready by January. Go Baby Go. Mixing it was the worst nightmare I've had recently.
Hmm.
So I was like back and forth with the mixes and showing it to people who actually know how to mix things. And I got a lot of inputs, and then finally it all came down to let me re-record this with the 12-string Rickenbacker guitar, and it just sounded exactly like I wanted. And it just cut through the mix, and it sounds like it sounds today.
The would you like to talk about the tracks before we listen? Do you want to talk about the tracks after? Because I know that
Can
very
be after.
first song. Okay, the
Yeah,
very
can
first
be
song.
after. I'm
Wow,
cool.
kind of packs a punch here. All right, so for those of you that are tuning in, thank you. This is how a listening party works. So what you want to do is you want to bring up the album Go Baby Go, and you can find that on Bandcamp. You can also head on over to Spotify, other social online social media platforms. And in a few minutes, what you're going to do is you're going to play the tunes from your device, whether you're sitting in your bedroom, sitting in the kitchen, maybe you're in your car like Ricardo, who knows, you're biking, you're walking, and then you're going to play the songs on your device. And then while you are listening, feel free to post any comments. And then after we're done, Ricardo's going to share his kind of like the insights into this EP. And then he will also talk about some albums that um, have inspired him along the way. So we are looking forward to this. And the first thing that struck me was the album cover. And we'll definitely get into that because I love the album cover quite a bit. Okay, so everyone, pull up your Go Baby Go Moon Cowboy EP. And when I say hit it, which is what HI stands for, you're going to hit it on your device. And then, Ricardo, if you want to mute your audio, you can. And I will do the same. And I will write the title of the tracks inside the comments box. All right? Okay. So here we go, everyone. Go Baby Go is the EP. Moon Cowboy. Hit it. Let's Go Baby Go by Moon Cowboy. Listening party here, High Arts on the Edge. We're going to hear track number 2, or you should be hearing it from your device at home. This is The Longest Road. This is gorgeous. Stunning track there, Moon Cowboy. Let's move to the final track, Go Baby Go EP. All proceeds go to mental health, which we'll get into a little bit later. This is Till the End. Till the End. I love how this just takes its time and just slowly evolves and morphs. Hmm. Wow. That was
Thank
lovely.
you.
How'd you feel
Thank
listening
you.
to that? How'd that feel?
Um, it's always weird when we listen to our own things. It's like we did it. It's done. But it's end of day here in Lisbon, and it was actually quite relaxing, if you ask me.
But, well, I think that's what your music evokes for a lot of people. It brings in that interior space of our minds and our feelings, and
Mm.
um, it's it kind of takes you on that journey, right? That dream pop shoegaze that can do so well. And as I alluded to in my comments earlier, I said, Brian Eno, are you listening out there? It's really
You
powerful
know,
stuff.
thank you. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Brian. By the way,
I know you are.
I'm sure it's noticeable.
Well, see, that's another thing I appreciate about your music, and you tend to bring out these inspirations, and you pepper them, layer them inside your tracks, but you also have your own voice, which is wonderful. So that was "Go Baby Go." I'm here with Moon Cowboy. Um, Ricardo is in a car today, getting some a chance to relax. And if you have any questions
Yeah.
for Ricardo, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. So let's talk about this three-song EP,
Mm.
and let's really thread it to mental health. And I want to start with the album artwork. Who did that?
I'm gonna be super honest with this one.
Yeah.
Well, Dali from OpenAI actually did it. Okay. Um, I think I was super happy with the result, and this was I wanted it to have something to do with Ukraine because things are just insane there. And I can't remember the exact wording I put there, but I'm sure Ukraine was there, and mental health, and it's inspired by Dawn Watson, which is a woman who attended one of the seminars I went into as well. Um, and I put all of those things, and then I tried like 5 or 6 times. And I remember the final one when I saw that image, I was like, "This is it." Okay, so I just nailed it. I do have a lot of designer friends, but it just nailed it.
Can you talk about Dawn Watson and
Mm,
what she went through?
yeah. Um, so I tell the story in the video, but it's worth if people dig a bit deeper. Um, I've been to a few personal development slash seminars. One of them was Tony Robbins a couple of years back, and I got to know, not in person, um, but I got to know about Don in a documentary that's available from that event, right, when she participated. And she was born into a cult in Brazil. She's Brazilian, called the Children of the Sun, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that one, but it's I think it's that. Um, where people, since they were little kids, like babies, were forced into sexual practices to show their love to the group and God and whatever. So she endured like years and years of this, and finally, a friend of hers took her to the seminar, and when she spoke up, even Tony Robbins himself had to stop the event, and like I couldn't handle it. It's way too much. And the story was so inspiring because she had tried to commit suicide like almost on a daily basis, but she had to support her family members, which were looking into her as the link of the entire family. So she couldn't not be there, and she went into the event. Long story short, she got over it with a lot, help and support, and nowadays she helps other people dealing with those sorts of issues as well. Um, I found it super inspiring. So when I wrote "Go Baby Go" the song, I knew exactly that I wanted to turn that story into like spread love into the cosmic and the galaxies and the entire universe. That's why it's "Go Baby Go," and there's the sun and things like that. It's like dawn traveling to the entire universe, not just Earth. That's how it got there.
You're dealing with a very difficult subject matter, sexual abuse.
Hmm.
So, with this seminar, I'm sure it was probably overwhelming at times to hear that story. But I want to go a little further with that. In her miraculous story, what is it that truly resonated with you? Why did it connect with you? Because for a lot of people, that subject matter could be a major turnoff. They don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, what is it about her story that truly inspired you?
Um, so, having been to one of those events, and I had a super close friend that was actually at that event that's on the documentary, and he got the whole story live from Don. I was like paralyzed when I was watching the thing, and I think it's the way she turned it around. When you go from a place of there's one thing that she mentions, which is she's unable to feel any emotion for any human being, right? So to reach that level of despair and then turn it completely around, and now she's super she's like happiness everywhere, right? When you look at her, I think that's for me an inspiration of, you can turn something which is really, really at the lowest of lows and still find whatever light share somewhere and go, right? Um, and for me, that was really, really a connection moment. But
Thank you for
I've
sharing.
nowhere close to what she experienced. Just, to be honest.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to ask you another question in relation to that. So that event inspired you. She has seen the lowest part of humanity, and somehow she is able to crawl out of that darkness and try to lead a normal life. So, can you think of a time in your life recently, since you've heard of that story,
Yeah.
where you've had to dig yourself out of a hole, out of the trenches of the darkness?
Yeah. I mean, in the last few years, I remember. So I have actually what is called generalized anxiety disorder. I hope I got the name right in English. Which, hopefully or thankfully nowadays I get like 2 panic attacks per year maximum. Right? So it's super controlled. But I remember there was a day a few years back. I was driving to the funeral of the wife of a close friend, a super close friend, and I knew her as well. And I was on the highway for 10 minutes, and I had to stop the car and go to the hospital. I couldn't drive. And then it happened again and again. And I said, okay, I got to see a doctor, see what's happening here. And immediately he said, that's generalized anxiety disorder. So what you're going to do, you have two options. And he's super into rock and roll. My doctor, we change records and he tells me, hey, they're going to play tonight and stuff like that. He said, I can give you meds, or you're going to take care of yourself with meditation, walks, and a lot of guitars and music and stuff like that. And one does not, override the other. You can actually do both, but and there's no problem in meds. But I think you can get out of there just by doing the other one. And so I did, and I wasn't always consistent. Right? So there were times where I was more anxious with something, or I wasn't doing any of the stuff that he mentioned, and immediately I felt more anxious. Daily. I remember my last panic attack was in November. Um, it wasn't a good thing, but luckily I was in my hometown, so it was controllable. Again, was driving, which gets more dangerous because if something happens. Um, but then, even though this is not even remotely close to what a lot of the people go through, I was just feeling anxious, and it manifested mainly on driving. But there were sometimes other stuff. Um, that all the things he told me to do worked. Speaking up to people and raising your hand and saying, "Hey, something's not right with me," um, worked wonders. I mean, I got a lot of help from friends and family and peers at my day job and stuff like that. And then we got to a point where there was my colleague. She went public with her anxiety as well, and I said, so I'm going public as well. And then a lot of people started reaching out, not just from the company but from everywhere. And then we formed this small peer-to-peer support group, trying to get others to at least address the subject, right? Because that's the main thing. A lot of people with mental health do not raise their hand, for a variety of reasons. Right?
Okay. So you're dealing with this mental health diagnosis. You're dealing with this feeling of isolation. Melancholy?
Mm.
What is it that what is it that is bearing down on you?
It's hard to say, because when I thought about it, I mean, things were cool, right? In most areas of my life, things were cool. I mean, I could look a bit more after my health, but I wasn't, behaving that bad. So it's really hard to pinpoint something and saying it's this thing. And from what the doctor told me, it's like throughout the years, you're like a sponge accumulating things, and at some point, your body and I felt like physical changes in my skin and things like that. Your body starts saying, "Look, we're starting to enter a really dangerous limit right now." And then I chose to ignore it, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And I mean, I could record, I could work normally, I could, just do my life normally, but from time to time there would be a panic attack. I would start, shaking a lot and things like that. Um, but it's hard to pinpoint something, really, really hard, which makes it even harder for people to admit something's going on.
Did you try with this doctor to try to pinpoint it to traumatic experiences in your life connected to your past?
Not with this one specifically,
Okay.
but I did do, way before that, hypnosis and things like that, and I love it. Actually, my grandparent was a doctor who did all of those things, because he was like a heart surgeon. I think it's called
Mhm.
like that. But he also explored like metaphysics and all of the non medical ways of solving issues and things. So I learned from him, meditation and things like that, and it does wonders. But every time I did it, there was no specific event,
Okay.
at least that we found, right?
Okay.
Um, there was like an accumulation of things over the years, and I tended not to until recently. Um, I think at the point of there was a point in my life where I was like, I wouldn't express my feelings that much, and that's even worse because everything just gets what there's a book called, "Feelings Buried Alive Never Die." So if emotions don't come out, they have to go somewhere, and it's in the body. And I truly, truly believe in those things. Um, I don't know. I mean, when I think of the first vinyl I heard was, I was like 6 or 7. It was, "Closer" by Joy Division. So it's not the happiest of the records, in music history. It's a gem of a record. Um,
No, but there's okay, well keep going. Keep going.
no, I'm done. I was just, this last bit. I remember the first vinyl record I heard was "Closer," which is one of the saddest pieces of music that I can remember, but it's lovely. Right? It's a masterpiece.
So in this experience with the panic attacks, this idea of you feeling like, where is all this coming from? I
Mm.
don't understand it. I want to flip it on its head here. And I want to ask you this question. And if you don't have an answer, that's fine. Through this difficult time, was there anything that you enjoyed about the experience? So let me give you an example.
Mm.
For some people in mental health issues, it could be a very grueling situation. Absolutely. But when they want to learn about it more, maybe they research it and they learn about it through that knowledge and information. And some people love researching and getting data. Did you experience any of that good feeling?
Um, I
Did you
did.
feel that that helped you?
I did. I mean, discovering things like meditation, which I still practice. That was really good. And then understanding and explore. I explore a lot about how the mind works and things like that. I'm super passionate about that and the education and things. Um, it's common that, and I understand your question about pinpointing something. It's common that it's triggered by some traumatic event which is recorded in our brain from since we cannot even remember. Um, but
Since
all of
birth.
those things, hmm?
Since birth,
Yeah, exactly.
the way we come
Um,
out. Yeah.
yeah, the brain is a complex thing in itself.
Mhm.
Um, but discovering meditation, forcing myself to go out to walk more and play guitars more, and when I hadn't played it for years, meeting other people who have gone through the same and have solved it and are now helping someone else. I think there's good parts to it, right? To the not to having a mental health issue, but you can find like Dawn, you can find something where you say, "Huh, I actually grew from this thing, and I learned
And
from
see,
this thing."
and that's what I love because I myself have suffered a bit at times with overwhelming stress and of other things. Um, and as I've gotten older, and this applies to me, I'm not saying this applies to you and anybody else that's watching this. Coping with that stress, the fear, the rage, the anger, the sadness, I've enjoyed it more because I understand for me to get out of
Mm,
it, I have to go through it. I want to go through it. Even if it's challenging, even if I don't understand it, I've
mm,
embraced that side of humanity and that part of myself. And rather looking at it like, oh shit, here we are again. Now I look at him like, oh, you're knocking on my door again. Come on in. What are you going to teach me? What is my other self going to teach me? Does that make any sense?
it does make total sense. Yeah, yeah.
So, and I try to go about it in that way where I'm sitting here going, okay, it's teaching me that I'm alive. That's what it's teaching me. And what can I do with this information? How do I process? Most importantly, how do I cope with this? And
Yeah.
so my question I'm getting to is what tools have you acquired that have helped you along the way besides making music
Hmm,
and meditation?
hmm. Definitely what you just said, right? I know now when something's about to happen. I didn't knew before, so it gets a lot easier to deal with, and not to ignore it or just fight it, but say, okay, this is happening. Let's now I know. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um,
Go, baby, go. Come on.
go baby, go. Come on. Um, but I think one of the gigs I went to recently, like a year ago or 2 years ago, I can't remember, was Primavera Sound, and Nick Cave was on the stage. I mean, Nick Cave is always mind blowing,
Yes, he is.
and to go what he's been through,
Yeah.
like, and he gets on stage and he's Nick Cave, and he throws. I'm sorry, Slow Dive, you were on the set as well, but he threw. It was the most amazing gig throughout the whole festival. Um, and when I look at those sorts of examples, I'm thinking he went through stuff which I cannot even start to imagine, and he's there and he's pulling out a phenomenal show. Right? Some people can do it, some people cannot do it. It's a super tricky subject. Um, Luckily for him, he was able to pull it off. I remember once I was in an airplane and I started listening to one of the songs from Skeleton Tree, which I love that record. Um, One that he sings with someone, I'm forgetting the name, like a singer from
Distant
Denmark or
sky.
something.
Distant sky.
Distant Sky with, yeah, sang with live with someone.
Yeah.
This woman who sings like heaven. and I
Yes.
was on an airplane, and I started hearing that that song. I remember I don't cry a lot, and I remember just crying like hell and thinking, wow, I mean, how can you go through so much, do something like this, and then go on stage and just make it sound even more magical, right? Um, so I think those are the inspiration, some of the inspirations I get.
So let us go now, my one true love. Call the gas man, cut the power out.
Mm.
We can set out for the distant skies. Watch the sun, watch it rising in your eyes. Um, it truly is a remarkable song. And so I'm hearing music,
Mm.
friendships, family support, meditation, walks, diet. Have you played around with diet and food and anything like that?
I'm I'm playing it at I'm at the moment. Yes,
Okay.
okay. I started recently. I think I'm an emotional eater, so I haven't paid a lot of attention to uh, my diet. But
Yeah.
I reached the point recently where I said, okay, I gotta do something. So I went to a nutritionist, and it's going very very well, and I actually feel much better. Um, and the whole family. So my wife was doing CrossFit. Um, we got the we have three kids. One of them is a year and a half, so he's not doing CrossFit yet. But the other two are. So now we all go into CrossFit lessons. And after 10 minutes, I'm like wishing I was not there because I cannot do anymore. And it's still 50 minutes to go. But exercise, just moving, diet, that definitely has a ton of impact. I think one of the things, you just nailed it. One of the things which more contributes to worsening the problem is diet and a lack of movement, right? I remember a psychologist I had. She said, "You need to move, right? Because even when I was playing, and I played like 300 gigs or something with this Portuguese singer called David Fonseca, um, and they're like massive stages, right? And he's like number one in Portugal for ages. I used to get smaller panic attacks even on stage, so it would be common, and I wasn't nervous because I'm cool with the stage. But there was a point in my life where I would have some pills just as an emergency.
Hmm.
Um, and what was happening, my diet was a disaster. I wasn't doing anything. I was working like hell in another day job, and then you have 86 gigs to do in a year. So by the time you you reach November, I actually collapsed and woke up in the hospital. Um, and the psychologist said you got to move because even on stage, I started experimenting. I was classic shoegazer, just focused on the sound. I would be static. And I started experimenting, just walking around and moving a bit, and it actually helped a lot
Yeah.
because you remove the focus from what's happening. Right?
Yeah, and releasing endorphins, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you're exercising in a way your physical capabilities, which allows you to, at least for me, that, for example, I play a lot of pickleball. I used to play a lot of tennis,
Yeah.
and it's exhausting. But in my mind, mentally, I just was feeling like, wow, I'm pushing all of this stress that is up here and over. I'm just pushing it back out into the universe. And just 30 minutes to an hour, I already felt better. So it's great that you are taking these steps. In terms of you and medication, if you
Mhm.
don't want to share, that's fine. What are your thoughts on medication?
I think I have several psychiatrists actually in my family. and psychiatrists by default tend to go into medication. I know, family members who take medication. I think it's. I'm not going to say do it or don't do it.
Right.
I'm not. Um, I don't have the medical authority to say, forget about it, or yes, you got to do it. In my specific case, when I was prescribed medication, I tried it for a while and I just said, no effing way. Right? Because I couldn't do anything. I was like paralyzed. So I just said no. Now, many years back, when I had my first anxiety, nervous thing, I was like 20ish at the moment, 20 something. And that was when I was playing a ton of gigs and stuff and working a lot. And at some point I couldn't do anymore, so I was prescribed meds. And if you add alcohol and stuff to it, it just gets like a giant snowball of a disaster waiting to happen. So I said, no, okay, I'm not going to go this route. So what's the alternative? But in a lot of cases, it may be needed. I'm not going to say yes or no. But I do think when you look at people like Don Watson, when you look at Nick Cave or people who are known and have turned things around, I don't know if they're doing it or not, but there is a way to get out of those really, really rock bottom places that doesn't involve taking a ton of medication, for sure. But it may be harder for people to get access to that and start experimenting and have above all, the support of friends and people that can give them a helping hand there, because it can get quite tricky at some point.
And let's add one more challenging piece to that. Sometimes people have to go through those really heavy moments. As much as
Mm.
we want to support them and help them, we can't do a thing until their mind is ready to make the changes, right?
It's like, so we cannot pull them out. They have to, raise their arm and say, I need help,
Yeah.
or else it's not gonna work. At least from my experience. But I've seen even friends, and I'm remembering of a couple who have been through so much as well, way worse than I have. And I mean, they don't have perfect lives, but they managed it. And they're here and they're happy. Right?
Let's talk about a few of the other two tracks here on Go Baby Go. So you have The Longest Road and Till the End.
Mm.
The inspirations for those?
Well, The Longest Road is easy. It's like, I think the ending sounds very similar. I always wanted to do this song, which is like a Mojave 3 song called Baby's Coming Home, where you just go into, a sunset on some road in America somewhere. And there's, most of the song is just slide guitar and instrumentals. I absolutely love that record and that track. And when I had this one, I had like a minute and a half, which is the song part. I didn't have anything else. So one day I was just playing, and I started playing slide guitar and started adding effects. And I'm thinking, okay, this could be it. So let's see where this goes. And I just started playing and playing and playing. In the end, super bluntly, it might be a complete, Baby's Coming Home steal. Because at some point I was directing it even more to that. But I think the finishing touch, I remember going to my wife and said, I love this song. And this was recently, like January, when I was finishing the record. I love this song, but I know exactly how I want it to end. And that's the only thing that's missing. And I wanted, the ladies and gentlemen beep. So that's almost inaudible, but it's there at the end. like a beep. Um, but yeah, it's Baby's Coming Home. It's Mojave 3. It's out country all over the place.
I'm trying to pull that. I know the song quite well. So would you ever let them know?
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm
Yeah,
cool with that.
Neil or Rachel or Ian.
Yeah. Oh,
Just it just
yeah.
as a way to say thank you, right?
It is. I mean, they had a massive influence. Rachel, we met in person for the first time in '99, I think, when I was recording in Brighton for my first band. She laid off some vocals on the record. We had a track actually, and we showed it to her, where the bass line was just the same as their cover of Some Velvet Morning. And I remember that was one of the first things we said. Hey, I think we're stealing something from you, and I'm sure she's fine with it. I can't remember what she said at the time, but it was a fun time to me. So yeah, for sure, I'm cool with that.
I'm gonna just pull it up here for a sec.
Yeah.
This is Baby's Coming Home, Mojave 3.
Yeah.
People forget about Mojave 3. I go, what happened to Slow Dive? And it was great. I absolutely loved their music.
Yeah.
And last album, my God, I think it's 2007, long time ago.
Yeah.
Puzzles Like You.
Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't like you was a good one. I never spoke to Rachel about this or anyone of them, but actually, when they do Mojave 3, people are asking for Slow Dive. No, they're doing Slow Dive. They're doing the best work of their career, in my opinion. And people are going, so hey, when is Mojave 3 gonna do some gigs? So, which just shows how talented they are, right? Um, but Mojave were the band that got me into more of the folk out country kind
Yeah.
of thing.
So let's get into, if you don't mind, some albums that have inspired you.
Oh yeah, here's one. Well, here's one. And by the way, this is our cosmic moment. We didn't talk about this at all, right?
Nope.
So when I joined this call, I was like, "What's that record just behind me?" Because my T-shirt today, let me see if I can show it, is the
Oh,
same
look at
one.
that. There it is. There it is.
So
We did
well,
not
this is
plan that,
one.
people. We did not
It was
plan that.
not planned. It was not planned. This is definitely one. I think Darren Allison. He was one of the producers of the record. We also worked with them in my first band. He was producing us, and I speak to Darren, from time to time now, and we were just chatting when I was releasing this one. The Ladies and Gentlemen record, for me, has the best song ever written, ever, which is the title track. And then you have Broken Heart, which is, but the whole record is like a masterpiece from Jason Pierce. So that one, it's, I won't say it's my favorite record of all time, but it's my favorite song of all time. Massive influence. Actually, the beep is on Longest Road, and it may be on upcoming tracks as well.
Sweet.
I have actually some of the records here, and some are obvious, some may not be. Let me see. Where do we start? Well, one we spoke about it already. This is the Slow Dive one. I do think it's their best ever. I love the whole record. It's just they're mind blowing live at the moment. Just like an intense experience, almost like My Bloody Valentine, which may actually be better because hearing some of the new songs live, um, it's like how do you say it in English? Transcendental.
Yeah.
Transcendental.
Yeah.
So
So,
that's why.
so by the way, just for everyone to know that it starts off with the most incredible epic song, Slow Mo. But
Yeah.
every track is phenomenal. But there's a track here that when I saw them play it live, it was that transcendent moment, and it elevated me to a place I don't think I've ever experienced since a Kitchens of Distinction show.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so that track um, is this one. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I could.
Good.
It literally, and I haven't spoken to the bandmates and anything about the message
Mm,
behind the song. What were they shooting for? But I remember when they played that in San Francisco at the Warfield, I could visualize myself strapping in, getting into the
yeah.
rocket, and let's go. And let's just go where this journey is going to take us.
Yeah.
And it was so incredible. I just had my eyes shut, and I was on no substance except for the music. No
Okay.
alcohol, no drugs, nothing. And it was one of the most intense feelings I've ever experienced at a show.
Yeah.
And that to me is the epitome of the album that you just showed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great pick. Keep it going.
Um. So yeah, this one, the record which actually got me into guitars was Nowhere. All right. I think my mother got it from Paris or something, and she brought it, and I pressed play, and I said, like 1 minute into Seagull, I said, okay, I need to buy an electric guitar, and I was 14 at the time.
Yes, I love
But
it.
right, they've heard their ups and downs along the way, but for me, where they reach perfection is in this one. This is the Today Forever EP. There you go.
Yep. Unfamiliar beneath. I love I
Seen
just the
and
art.
yeah, yeah. I watched them at Brixton Academy 5 or 6 years ago on the Nowhere tour, and when they played Today, the song, I just paralyzed. Okay, which it's also another song, but actually paralyzed during Today. Um, I think they're becoming a lot better now than they were in their late stages of the first incarnation. So that's a big one, and I owe them the fact that I'm a guitar player because of them. Maybe not an obvious choice, but this one had a major impact on me.
Interesting. I mean, that's a great album, but it's not nearly as gazy as the previous, right?
It's not, and I mean, I love Northern Soul. I think it's just pure magic, and even Storm in Heaven. But with Urban Hymns, it just sounds so complete. Like
Mhm.
you have the noisy moments, you have the acoustic moments, you have Nick McCabe experimenting with a ton of different guitars in the background, and somehow it just sounds like it's the Verve uh, doing their most complete and broader work they've done to date. Um, I think the way, yeah, that's just, yeah,
Oh, there it is.
there it is, yeah. Um, I remember when I was I must have recorded, I don't know, 8 albums maybe, 6 to 8 with David Fonseca here from Portugal. And I remember every time I felt stuck on something, trying to come up with guitars, I would go and listen to something by The Verve. and immediately something would pop up into my mind. So Nick McCabe for me is just it's just the main the probably the best guitar player of the since the 90s or something. A lot of the stuff I did at the time was just trying to be Nick McCabe. That was it. Okay. I don't think that
Does he,
happens that often
does
anymore.
he know that?
I I don't think so. But I hope he's still doing something in music. I haven't heard from him in ages. He's like a genius. So
Yeah. Well, you should let him know. Shoot him a message.
I will let him know. Thanks for the heads up.
I'm not
And
telling you.
finally, just one record that's on repeat at home is the Mint Julep one.
Oh, mint julep.
This one is just, yeah, in a deep and dreamless sleep. I love them. I got to know them, maybe got to know their music like 2 years ago. And they have more records, but this one is the one that's constantly on repeat. They're just magnificent. I love them. And the last one, just to cut it short, is a band called Resplendor,
Mm.
which Antonio was super cool to send me the vinyl of their latest one, which is Tristeza. I love this record as well. There's a lot of influences from Cocteau Twins, Robin Guthrie, and it's also mastered by Simon, actually.
It is Tristessa, and I actually was able to have a listening party for this album with
Oh,
Antonio. So there are how many tracks? There are only 7 songs, but my goodness,
yeah,
what a journey, right?
yeah,
What a mood piece. Such great atmosphere to these tracks. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so I want to go back to that Mint Julep one. How prolific are
yes,
they? I mean, they are just constantly churning out some great music. And
yeah.
still, I feel as though there's still that band that hasn't crossed over yet. And they're so
Mm,
well respected in the shoegaze dream pop community. I heard of them through the DKFM folks, Chrissy and all them,
yeah,
and like a lot of the newer stuff. Um, but that album is fantastic. If you wouldn't mind later, you don't have to do it now, but would you in the comments box, can you type in these albums that you are suggesting?
sure, yeah, yeah. I will.
So
I had
what's
another
next?
one, but
Oh
that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah, go ahead.
That's
Yeah, go.
that's the obvious one, right? It's My Bloody Valentine. But Loveless is a masterpiece. Isn't Anything is brilliant. But what started it for me was the tremolo EP.
I knew you're gonna pull that one.
Because I remember hearing To Hear Knows When and thinking, okay, what's happening around here? Music has just changed forever, I think. Um, so that, yeah, massive influence as well.
What's next for Moon Cowboy?
Um, I definitely need to get a label or at least someone that kind of helps with promotion and stuff because I cannot do it anymore alone. So I'm going to start looking for that. I want to keep on the mental health topic for a while and see, how can I put everything in my life focused on that. Um, and I need to finish those 8 or 9 songs a bit more and launch a record sometime this year. And there was, I hope to start playing more gigs now.
Great.
So I played one last year. I always said I'm not going to do gigs alone at stage with a laptop. I ended up doing it. And I had a lot of fun.
Good, good. Challenge
And
yourself. I love it.
yeah, and I picked the sound guy that I really wanted because he's also into, the Valentines and stuff like that. So apparently it was like a small festival. I had the loudest sound of the day. So mission accomplished. And today I was speaking with another band earlier that actually want to go on the road a bit. So I think we're gonna see some gigs throughout the
Great.
summer. Yeah.
Before I forget, you actually did some work with a gentleman from Slow Dive, Simon Scott, and
I did. Yeah.
the
Let's see
last.
if it gets
So I just spoke with Lavender Blush from San Francisco. They worked with
better.
Simon. Um, Soft Set just worked with Simon. So a lot of bands are using and going to his amazing services. So would you talk about your connection to Simon?
Oh, Simon is it's incredible to work with. Let me see if that just gets better. When I reached out to him, I needed to master, right? I can record. I pretend that I can mix, but for sure I cannot master, right? And I said, I knew Rachel, but I didn't know Simon. And I just said, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could get Simon? But I never thought it would be possible. So I just shoot him an email and for the first EP, and he said yes, which was actually a pain at some point because the first EP, you don't know it, but it was recorded in GarageBand, and GarageBand records in 44K, which can lead to some issues
Sure.
later. Simon gave me a ton of tips, which I applied now. And the second one, it's different software. It's Logic. There's a whole like mini studio at home now. Things are simpler. So with Simon, I think people reach out to him. Well, number one, because he was in Slow Dive, but now that you start to think about Simon outside of Slow Dive, he's been doing amazing mastering work with a ton of bands, right? And for the second one, I knew immediately I have to reach out to Simon because he immediately gets what I want it to sound like. I did for the Go Baby Go. I didn't say anything. It's like, here's 3 tracks. Can you master them? I used another software. I followed your advice. Here they are. And he just sent me the tracks sometime later, and I just pressed play and I say, spot on, because he gets it, and I think he gets a lot of different styles and what each artist is trying to get out of the record, because you can actually screw up completely a record when you master it. I think Simon is brilliant at doing that.
He is getting a lot of attention for his work, rightfully so. Mark Gardner's in the same vein, right? Doing this kind of mastering production work.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see people of this caliber really stretching their wings and tapping into that creative, artistic side.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, that's awesome. I'm sure he's very appreciative of working with you as well. Anything else you want to share? You get the last comment here.
Well, once again, thank you for having me. It's always pure joy talking to you.
You're absolutely
I love the fact that we had the ladies and gentlemen thing and we didn't plan this one. I think my final message is we are at a stage in the world where a lot of stuff is happening. Like there's the war in Ukraine, which is mind-blowing, how we have an European, or actually how we have war anywhere in 2023. It just doesn't make any sense. And it seems like it's going to last for a while. The mental health issues, they're growing exponentially. It's only going to get worse with the world becoming more artificial intelligent. Although I work on the field, just to be fully transparent about that. But there's one thing that humans need, and that's uncertainty. We need excitement. We need different things, right? We also need certainty. But if everything's super planned and we know exactly what's going to happen tomorrow and in 1 year, there's no excitement, and that can lead to all sorts of mental issues as well. So my final message is, take care, please. If you're experiencing something which is not comfortable, just speak to someone before it's too late, before it can get really complicated. And if you can in any way, and you don't have to buy the EP, but if you can in any way, just go through the FGIP, so Federation Global Initiative on Psychiatry. They are putting worldwide resources on helping people in Ukraine to deal with mental health, because I have no idea what it's like to be in a country at war. I cannot even start to imagine. If in any way you can donate, would be super cool. So
This has been a really illuminating, as always, an intelligent conversation with you. My mantra for this line of work that I'm in is to educate, entertain, not me, but these events. And certainly that came about today. I want to wrap this up with something that you just mentioned, the artificial intelligence, the world that we are moving into more and more. I don't know if you saw Nick Cave's response to Chat GPT. Did you see this?
no.
I'm just going to read it, and he I think he wrote about it in the Red Hand Files, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going
Yeah.
to just
Yeah.
truncate it here. But he says Chat GPT has no inner being. It has been nowhere. It has endured nothing. It has not had the audacity to reach beyond its limitations, and hence it doesn't have the capacity for a shared transcendent experience, as it has no limitations from which to transcend. So he goes on more and more about his I guess dislike for the
Yeah.
artificial world that we're
Yeah.
moving into so rapidly. Ricardo, this has been so wonderful. Thank you for your time. Thank you all for tuning in. And this event will stay up on the page. It'll also be on our new YouTube channel. So you can always go back and replay it. 2 a.m., 2 p.m. I wish you the best of health. It sounds like you are scraping and clawing your way out of that darkness, but a darkness that I also sense there's a lot of light there, which these moments can bring us great knowledge about ourselves and self awareness. And I'm glad that you're able to hang on and share with us your love for mental health and people getting better. And of course, your love for music. So thank you.
Thank you, William. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. My name is W. High Arts on the
Hello.
Edge. And Ricardo Fiel, Moon Cowboy. Go, Baby, Go is the EP. Check it out. Help out a good cause and help out our good friend, Ricardo. Take care, everyone.